Welcome back to the Daily Dean. What really is walking? That's probably what is going to be the title of this video, and it's a great question because I was thinking about it. I don't really know what walking is. I've done it every day of my life since I was. Actually, that's a lie. There are some days where I didn't walk at all because I was hurt, but I've walked for like 99.99% of my life, and so have you probably. And I don't really know what walking is, right? And it's kind of a question about, you know, the things that we do on a daily basis, we don't really understand, but that's a whole different sentiment. Like plumbing, for example, a lot of people use a bathroom, but they don't understand the forces that work in their toilet, in the filtration of the water, in the water pressure exerting into the toilet bowl, etc., etc. But this is just something very basic that we've all probably experienced. When we move, what really happens is, friction. We should define that. Friction is how easily something will move across another object. Or really, it's the force that keeps an object from moving against another one, okay? So, if you imagine, I should have prepared some kind of material. Here's a puzzle box, and here is a bunch of sticky notes, okay? If I wanted to slide this puzzle box across this surface, the friction would want to keep it from moving. So I can exert a force this way, but friction is going to prevent it from moving to some degree, right? Because the friction of these two, the coefficient of friction between these two materials, well, it's technically relatively low, but actually that's a different thing. It's just what keeps an object, it's what, it's a force that prevents an object from moving across a surface. Now, when you walk, you have your shoes making contact with the ground, just like this box making contact and moving against this sticky note, this pad of sticky notes. So, when we move, what really happens is you're putting your, okay, let me actually make it like, my arms are like legs. You're really just moving one leg forward. Friction prevents you from moving, continuing moving forward as you move your other leg past it. There's this great, Khan Academy thing that emphasizes how one leg is stationary when you walk. And that is like an example of how the friction as you, move forward, whoopsies, just dropped the puzzle box, keeps your leg in contact against the ground as you, because if you had no friction at all, your leg wouldn't be able to, man, I really probably should have planned this ahead of time, but if you had no friction, you would have no way to keep your leg stationary as you move the rest of your body. So the friction against your foot and the ground helps you move forward, right? And that's something you may not have thought of, but there's some more interesting terms along with that I was researching as well. What if you had, this is a little too complicated to explain all the background, but the coefficient of friction is how you define how sturdy or how hard it is to move something across a surface. If your soles of your shoes, I'll show you the sandals I'm wearing right now, the slides, technically. The coefficient of friction against these two, against my slide, against like the carpet or wood in my house, is relatively high compared to the coefficient of friction between, kind of gross, my sock and a wooden floor, right? The coefficient of friction between my sock and a wooden floor allows me to slide. If I were moving with the same kind of motion and energy and force as I would with my slide, then it'd be pretty hard to slide everywhere, right? Ironically, because it's a slide, it's a sandal thing. But it's way easier with this sock. So the coefficient of friction that keeps me sliding with my sock is lower than the coefficient of friction between my sandal and my wooden floor or whatever, right? So that's one way to think about it. The coefficient of friction between my sock and a polished surface is very low. The coefficient of friction between my sandal and a wooden surface is relatively higher. And the coefficient of friction between concrete and concrete, for example, is huge. One way, another interesting tidbit about that, related back to walking kind of, is how there's little, I forget the word, it starts with an A, I'm not going to look it up now. There's little divots, right? If you zoom in microscopically, in your shoe, in your sock, in the sole, whatever, that clicks into other divots against the ground. Because microscopically, things are all bumpy and edgy and stuff like that. There's the molecules and whatnot that make things have gaps and grooves and edges and stuff, so that the ground I'm moving against looks like this microscopically, and the shoe that I'm wearing is also microscopically very, curvy and groovy. So when I step down, those grooves fit into each other, and some of them have to get pushed back, snapped off, moved out of the way in order to move. And that results in a higher coefficient of friction if I were, well, okay, now that's way out of there. It's about static and dynamic friction that I don't fully understand. Those are just terms that I've come across that I don't fully get. But interestingly, if you think microscopically, you have things in the materials that you're walking against, and the things that you're walking with, in this case a sock or a sandal, that results in these grooves entering these divots and spikes and whatnot, that results in higher friction. Because, well, actually, I don't really know atomically what friction is. I think it has to do with bonds, but I'm okay with admitting that I don't know what friction is as a, microscopic force. But that's basically all I got to share today. If you'd like to learn more about the physics of walking, check my masterclass on... No, I'm not sponsored by Masterclass or Brilliant, but that's cool. That's all it. So bye.